It's okay that the junior copywriter goes away. We have to be okay with that because they were already replaceable by a tool. The problem is copy is not a writing exercise. It is a selling exercise. Let everybody else create slop. Fucking great. Go create all the junk you want to create all day, because then my stuff will stand out. That's where you keep your job. That's what the business hired you in the first place for that. No one said you have to be best friends with everybody you work with. Sometimes you're going to make people do things they don't really want to do for the good of the business. If anybody should be doing things that make them uncomfortable, it's the founder.
It's so obvious to say AI is just a drafting tool and human strategy is what actually makes the content good and drive conversions. But most teams still use LLMs to flood all of their social media channels with absolute slop and treat their marketers like an afterthought. And that's exactly where things start to break. So I sat down with Joanna Wiebe, who spent the past 20 years writing best-selling books, building frameworks used by Fortune 500 companies to actually understand how marketers are going to survive this AI apocalypse. We dive into key themes: why the homepage is just dead, how to stop guesstimating what messaging is going to work, and how to actually tangibly A/B test. And the uncomfortable truth that the highest leverage job of a marketer today is, interestingly, bullying the founder. Enjoy this episode. I'll see you very soon. I'm excited to dive into this conversation, and more specifically on where you feel like conversion copywriting is going with AI, because I know you're talking a lot about it, and go beyond the generic advice of, oh yeah, use AI for your drafts and then do strategy and then, voila, everything's amazing. I'll get into that. But first, I want to get into, where do you feel like the stages of awareness or the funnel that used to work 5 years ago of build a solid homepage, build solid brand assets, do solid copywriting, and then move your customer through different stages of the funnel to finally convert. With LLMs coming into the picture, how do you feel like that is the stages of awareness are changing drastically going forward?
I don't think they are. I really don't. I think that the homepage was never part of your funnel. And if it was, that's weird. It probably didn't perform very well if your homepage was a consideration at all. It's always been an airport sort of situation, right? For your homepage, just like it's a jumping off point to the place you really should be. And so that's where search was supposed to get you to the right place, and it didn't. That's where, social posts have always been supposed to get you to the right place. They don't. And so it's always been kind of busted. And that's why people, I think, would gravitate toward the ClickFunnels of the world, because it's like, there are 4 steps in this funnel and we are just going to push people into the top of it. And that's like it. People still gravitate towards that. I'm not saying ClickFunnels is growing. I don't know anything about their business, but those are the kinds of things that have always been attractive. But that was always for lower middle to bottom of funnel, always. It was very difficult to get somebody in top of funnel into your, any funnel that you made. And so we've always had this chaos going on all over the place, but marketers have loved to act like we're in control of that. We put our ads together, drive them to landing pages, track engagement, track clicks, rather than real metrics that are really important, actual money metrics that the business cares about. So what's changed? Stages of awareness have not in any way changed. It's a human thing. It's not a business thing. So it's business trying to organize itself around how humans actually look and behave. And so that is just happening in a freer state right now, in a state that has always been the case. It's how we've always wanted to discover products or determine if it's the right product for us, going through a channel that will help us surface the insights that we need. And that's what LLMs are really spectacular at. That doesn't mean that they're right either. But that's on us to make sure that they're finding the right stuff so that they can serve us up at the right point in that journey, whatever you call it. For us, it's the stages of awareness.
In a traditional sense, you could control, or you could write the social posts, the ads, the website, the marketing documents, so on and so forth. The feeling a lot of, especially marketers, founders at the startup level, what they have now is I have zero control over, yes, I can build great content and I can be helpful and I can have the right information, but I cannot control how an LLM communicates that in the individualized context of each customer. Because before, you could nudge or you could influence how a human being thinks directly through the channels that you had. With this specific channel, it feels like we don't have any control over how it's perceived and how that nudging is
Really?
happening.
Okay, I think
I
the
would love
control, there's an illusion.
I would love to know what you think about that.
Yeah, no, illusion of control I would put an asterisk there. There's never been control. If there was control, for God, we'd have 100% conversion rates. We're getting, on a good day, 2% out of an optimized funnel. So there was never any control. We were forced to have this linear page. This thing is a rectangle, and it's mostly actually just a square if you don't get anybody to scroll past it. So you've got, on a good day, a single scroll before you're losing everybody. And we can see this, and it's not marketing's fault. The whole premise of the way a website is put together is, hi, I'm going to push messages at you. I have no idea if they're the right messages. I don't know crap about you. You're here. I'm pretending I know. I don't. And I'm going to serve up, I'm going to tell myself that it's data-driven copy, but we all know all messages are brainstormed. Whether anybody wants to pretend otherwise or not, I can beat the drum for 15 years like I've done, voice of customer, voice of customer, voice of customer. And I will hear people say, oh yeah, voice of customer. And then I'll look at their copy and say, where did this come from? Brainstormed that. Yeah, that came from our PM team, and they brainstormed it, but they said this is final copy, so this is what we're using. So we're taking these like crappy messages, putting them in an interface that's forcing behaviors that are not natural. And I'm not saying AI or LLMs or chatting with ChatGPT is natural, but isn't it more natural to have a conversation about what you're looking for with real questions that you get to ask, where you get to be kind of bitchy too with ChatGPT and say, no, that's not what I'm looking for. What's wrong with you? And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And then it tries to find a better answer. Your website didn't do that. And sure as hell, your chat support didn't do that either. If you had sales chat on your site, they weren't like, I appreciate what you're saying. Let me find the right answer for you. They were like, I have to end this conversation now, if you got weird about it. But people are allowed to get passionate and weird about things that they want to solve. So we've been very controlled. We've had like a behavior. This is our brand. This is how we do things. And what's come of that? On a good day, a 2% conversion rate versus AI. So I would say, yes, we cannot control the message, but we never could. So the best thing we can do is now get as much of the honest to goodness truth out there about our products, who they're for, what makes us different, what makes us better, all of the hard work that we did to create this product. Let's tell the world about it, which means telling the world in such a way that LLMs will learn and then push the right messages out. That's the greatest amount of control we can have, but there's no sense of, there never was. I wish there was control. I'm a control freak. There's no control. There's none.
Yeah, I think really the idea harkens back to you could never control conversions. You could only optimize. Attached part to that, really, on the LLM side, is a lot of LLMs are review mining on different niches, different case studies, so on and so forth. Now we have two problems, and I would love to know your take on is if somebody drops a review on Amazon or, posts on Reddit, for a human being to read something and understand what context did somebody have or what situation was somebody in when they wrote a certain post or
Yeah.
dropped a certain review or did something, so on and so forth. Relatively easier for a human being to decipher. But now we have two problems. One is we have synthetic reviews, which is a whole can of worms on its own. And then we also have these LLMs going to Reddit, going to LinkedIn, going to Twitter, going to all of the channels that human beings used to go to figure out whether a product is good or bad. Now, for a marketer who's sitting there and trying to understand, okay, one, I need to figure out what the human voice of customer I'm trying to appeal to and who I'm trying to talk to. But now there is this perception of not only am I going to use an AI for that because I'm resource constrained as a startup, so I'm using LLMs to go and read through reviews. And the second part is, even if they're reading the reviews, I don't know if they're true or not, and if they're synthetically made, or the LLMs taking the right context. So for a marketer that's facing that problem today, I would love to know, what would your advice be to them? How do they filter out operationally which is the right human voice of customer?
The same way they always have, right? Like there's always been synthetic, nicely put. There's always been fake reviews, right? There's always been BS we've had to filter through. And this goes back to I think that, AI is a tool that has entered our ecosystem. It hasn't changed behavior. It hasn't changed that there are fake reviews. It's just, sure, it's going to read those reviews. Our job is the same as it's always been, but we don't have to fiddle with channels the same way anymore. We still have to go out and research and listen. We still have to use our own filters to say, like, that sounds like someone made that up. Like, look, it's clear, it's keyword stuffed. Nobody writes one like that, so you eliminate it. That happened 15 years ago, too. That's happened all this time. We've always had to do it. But now we have more time because we've got agentic AI helping us with all of the BS that we weren't good at. Now we get to just like read things and listen and know the way that I know if someone's had like an eyebrow lift, like there's something weird about you. There's something different. I've evolved to understand that a face looks a certain way and that face doesn't look the way it does. And there's all of the decision making that's happening in my head. Same thing is true for reviews. We have BS radars. Like we can tell when something. Now that doesn't mean that's always true. There will always be some really good fakes. Fine. But we're also not just using one source of voice of customer. We're triangulating, right? We're listening across all sorts of different channels, different spaces. The listening is what we're doing across channel. I don't think that we have to be in control of pushing messages across channel like we used to. But if we can listen and identify what those messages are and use them in our content, then great. But to me, the job feels the same but better because I actually have time now to go and spend time. If I'm willing to be a really good marketer, a disciplined marketer, not distracted by all the stuff, but a disciplined marketer who is like, I'm going to listen to what customers are saying. I have a block in my calendar every day or whatever it might be. And I go to Amazon or I go to wherever those reviews are and I go to our surveys and I do a customer interview every morning. I can do those things now and really listen for that voice of customer. So does that speak to what you're saying?
Yeah, no, I think what I'm trying to allude to is there is a certain level of anxiety that we're speaking to, really. Because, one side of us is, and a lot of previous guests, I've spoken about the same thing with them as well. There is the anxiety of the new, and
Mm,
there's the comfort of the old.
sure. Jobs.
And yeah, so there is the truth is somewhere in the middle, always in context to what's really happening around. Right now, you are also, yeah, and you've spoken about this, at different places as well, where you feel like AI can only draft, but ultimately it's the human that's going to be a part of it. You've also said that it can cost up to $1,000 per employee if you use bad copywriting. Is that a true stat?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, there's new stats all the time, right? But absolutely, if you get your copy wrong, it's very expensive. So I think it's kind of the fool who will outsource their copy entirely to AI, just like it'd be a foolish video game designer who would outsource their video game design fully to AI. All of it. If you outsource an entire job that was done by professionals to AI, why did you do that? Is it a trigger effect? Is it because you think you're much smarter and how hard could this be? That's customers will tell you.
So, what do you think is changing? Because I'm hearing a lot of, we still have to do X, we still have to do Y, copywriting's still the same, voice of
Yeah.
customer is still the same. So
Yeah.
what's changing? What
Well,
is
so much.
drastically?
The mechanisms are changing, the people are not. And that's a liberating thing for us. And I'm not a big AI person. I'm not like, no one's sponsoring me to say it, right? But I am absolutely seeing and have seen, like, if we can just kind of pump the brakes on being scared for a second, then we can see that it's a tool. AI is a tool and it's a really powerful one. And agentic AI is taking our jobs to a whole other level where we get to be really good at our jobs. Now, there are people who are not good at their jobs. They don't want to be good at their jobs. They want to clock in, do the bare minimum, and clock out. There are a lot of those people. They exist. B players, C players. Fine, let them. I can't solve for that. What we can do is say, like, but if you're really good at this, Agentic AI is going to superpower you. That's the difference. So I can't see players who are upset. I don't know. I got nothing for you. But for A players, dude, it's just getting better and better and better and better. It is difficult because you see people losing their jobs and you assume they're losing them because AI replaced them. And in some cases, AI replaced them. So that landscape is changing. If a tool can replace you, though, we're doing a great job. Like if a tool can replace you, because we've had tools come along all throughout history, tools everywhere, and they haven't replaced the top performers. Now, that's going to sound, I don't know if that's going to age like milk, right? Saying that because I'm sure some top performers are going to be replaced by it because it's getting better and better and stronger and stronger. But the world that we're in now, right now, the thing that has changed is yes, marketing, most marketing. Will you need a website? Do you need a website? Do you need anything other than a place to close people? Possibly not. Is now the time to start becoming a web developer? No. No, don't do that now. We don't know what the future holds there, but Lovable can do that really well without you. So, like, don't start those jobs. It's okay that these jobs go away. It's okay that the junior copywriter goes away. That's okay. We have to be okay with that because they were already replaceable by a tool. But what can we do with that? So maybe you're not ready to be, maybe there's no junior copywriter, but there are copy line managers, right? These agentic AI line managers who are running multiple tools and identifying what the best work is and what's doing the best stuff. How are we getting the best out of it? Optimizing, line managing, right? So much has changed. But what I want to pull people back to is that the customers that you are seeking have not changed. They just now get to access you in a different way and your competitors in a different way. So AEO, GEO is a thing to take seriously. That's why we're on YouTube, because ChatGPT, Perplexity, they love YouTube. They love Reddit. So we're in those spaces where we're like, okay, if we can't control our message, which we never could, then let's not pretend that our website's going to do the job. It's not, but it can do the work. All of our ecosystem of marketing messages can do the work of making AI recognize what we're really good at, what our differentiated value is. It'll probably still loop us in with a bunch of cheap buggers that we're not actually in the same category as, and we'll get a lot of bad leads in, but we'll also get a lot of good leads in. So that's what I think has changed. Yes, marketing is done completely off-site now, or if it's not there, it's going to be there any minute now.
So do you feel like a lot of the founders, the founder of Cluely, a lot of other startups as well, spend upwards of $100,000 on their website, on design, on copy, making sure everything is perfect? Do you feel like they're making a mistake, that they could allocate those resources to other places and they probably should be doing that?
I think that in 3 years, we're not going to see enterprises doing the same things that they're doing today, but there's a slow movement there when you look at, so it depends on the business, right? A small business should not be spending $20,000 to get someone to build their 5-page website on WordPress. And that was real. And people, it was a real barrier to entry. So now is a great time to not have to worry about that. So that business owner who had to find $20,000 to get that website built now doesn't have to find that $20,000, which is actually pretty good in the economy to not have to find that money. And to just like have your Lovable account and get that thing up there tickety boo in like 3 hours for what, $50 a month, whatever you pay for Lovable. So, but then enterprises and large businesses are not adopting AI the way the rest of us are. They have bigger security issues than a mom and pop shop has, or a one-person consultancy has, or a new author has. And so they need something very different. But if we know that, large organizations absolutely know that and are building for that future state. There is the inflection. We're at that right now. AI has unlocked a future that only the greatest are clearly able to see right now. I don't mean great humans. I mean great minds who are able to see and live in the future. And so, yeah, 3 years from now, will there be websites at all? What was the website for? It started as a digital brochure. For those of us who were there, when websites were a brand new cool thing, it was a digital brochure. You took your actual physical brochure, you handed it to your web agency, and I worked at those agencies, put that brochure online. That was it. Nobody knew what a homepage was for. Nobody knew what any page was for. You just did the thing. It just didn't have a threefold layout anymore. It was now pages instead. Websites replaced a digital brochure. I can't say they've gone that much further. If it's not a brochure, it's a catalog. That's what a Shopify site is. It's just a catalog. It's not an easier to use catalog. I could flip through a catalog faster in most cases than I can get through the average Shopify site. I love Shopify, don't get me wrong. But it's not, but what are we replacing here? We're just iterating on this. And now what's next? You don't have a brochure and you don't have a catalog and you probably won't have a website either. That's okay. But there'll be something else and you'll think, damn, this is cool. Just like we thought in 1997, a website is cool.
It's quite the statement to say. That
Well, don't you
maybe in
think?
3 years. Well,
No?
I've had both sides. I don't have an opinion on it just yet because I had Anthony Pieri on the podcast, and his whole business is the homepage, and that is the one singular document that drives the vision and offering and pricing for a company. And I do get that sense because LLMs they also need some place to draw from. Right. So
Sure.
ultimately,
But
it may
is it
not
your
be that,
homepage?
maybe not. So
No, but
if
like
it's
there's
not the
actual
homepage,
studies that
but
it's
if
not
it's,
your homepage.
so what is it? Where
The
should
other
people be
spaces.
spending their money?
Wikipedia, YouTube, Reddit, other like Business Insider, if that's what the space is that you're in. If you're an advertiser, Ad Age, all of these other places that are not I mean advertising agency, Ad Age, like these industry highly reputable spaces where what's said about you is more trustworthy than your digital brochure. I mean, I can't speak to this person's business where they're making their whole business on a homepage. I wouldn't invest in that future. I wouldn't invest in that future 10 years ago, though. So there are things I certainly don't know, but okay, someone wants a homepage. They don't come to me for that anymore. That's for sure. It's
Interesting.
other things.
Okay,
It's building your authority. It's the platform. It's the ecosystem. It's everything that LLMs care about, not
interesting.
your site.
Let's talk about copywriters for a minute because a lot of the content writers, copywriters I know, like we said, I mean, some are going to struggle, some are still going to make it. If you're the top 1%, you really never need to worry about it. But a lot of copywriters that are in teams right now have the struggle of making a case for conversion copywriting or copywriting to even matter or to be solid now more than ever, because now a developer with a Claude subscription thinks I can write better copy than the copywriter on the team, and we don't probably need them. So when these team members are making a case to the dev team, to the founders, who a lot of times are also technical, and there is this sort of underrepresentation of the work that a copywriter does or a brand marketer does or even a marketer does. So how does a marketer like that, how does a copywriter like that make the case to their team that solid copywriting matters and you need to spend more time on it and not just use Claude for it end to end?
Yeah, this isn't what anybody wants to hear, but I don't think they do. They don't make the case for that. But that's always been true as well. There's always been a developer who's written your copy for you. There's always been a designer who's been like, who's taken your copy doc and said, yeah, that was too much copy, so I cut it down to this. And like that's the world. Any copywriter who's listening to this or watching this and had a different experience, please write to me because the real experience has always been other people come in and say they can do this better than you can. That's always, always, always without, there is no case in which that hasn't been true. We have always had to make a case as copywriters for it. That's why copy hackers exist. That's why I invented conversion copywriting because people needed to hear about it in a new freaking way. That's why the copy selling system exists because people think this is a writing job and everybody thinks they're a writer. Everybody thinks they're a writer. They're mad at that high school language arts or English prof or teacher who was like, I didn't like that. They think it's subjective. Everybody thinks they're a writer, so everybody thinks they can write copy. And the problem is, copy is not a writing exercise. It is a selling exercise. It is selling passively for top of funnel and actively for bottom of funnel. And that is the case that almost no copywriter makes because almost no copywriter actually knows that either because they were an English major. They wanted to write for a living. They're working on a novel on the weekends. That's the state of things. And that's why I want people to not call it copywriting. I've said this since I started Copy Hackers. This is not a writing job, y'all. Nobody's paying you to write. Now, the one difference here is there's conversion copywriting, which is there to help you generate revenue. But then there's this other important part of creative copywriting today, which is, hey, you write a newsletter and AI has a summary at the top of it now. Why should I read your newsletter? You should read my newsletter because that's where my voice comes out, because there's going to be something interesting in there that AI doesn't even know is happening. AI's summary is there to be functional. So, what if I'm hiring my newsletter for an emotional job? What if it's a personal or social job that this newsletter is hired for to make me feel good about myself? I don't need an AI summary for that. That will defeat the whole purpose. I want to read this. So that's where there's a case to be made for creative as well, for really getting into brand voice, for making me feel something about a brand that AI is stripping the life out of. If all I'm doing is coming up as a ChatGPT response, I'm one of three things. There's a list of 5 people in the space that you're in, and you're like number 4 on that list. Sometimes you're 1, sometimes you're 4, sometimes you're not even on the list. In no way are they under ChatGPT isn't sharing what makes you really cool, what makes you like great to be around and a brand you want to buy into. They're stripping all of that out. So our job is not just conversion copy selling anymore. It's also having that really strong emotional brand so that I can feel connected in ways that AI does not make me feel connected.
My only thing I think about is there's just so much content to consume. Like, I think at
There's so
this
much
point,
bad content to consume. Yeah.
but bad is a determination that you can only make once you actually watch that content,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You cannot tell from afar if it's good content or bad content. So I
Yeah.
I have this I have this issue, and I have it personally as well. There is so much to read, so much to consume, so much to synthesize and intake for my own personal use case. I know a lot of marketers that have now used Claude Code or some of these wipe coding tools to build processes for themselves that can synthesize 10 newsletters. So there's one from Joanna, one from Bobby, one from X, Y, and Z, and they're getting in feeded, and then they're getting only the information that the LLM thinks that this person cares about. I imagine a future where this propagates even further. Right now, maybe it's only the savvy people, but maybe this gets propagated even further where you have distilled the kind of content you consume on all channels, specifically to your personal context. If that is the case, where does emotional copywriting come in? Where does that brand, where's that voice, where's that human feeling that we're looking for, that we know if this person subscribed to my newsletter, they're going to get that. And that's probably why they subscribe. And that's probably why they're sticking around. But the issue is now there's too much. And now people are using AI summaries because it works, right? I don't have to spend, even though that person's opinion matters to me. But I might not want to spend 15 minutes reading this because I have 15 other people that I want to consume content from. Humor me for a minute. If this
Yeah.
is a scenario that plays out, where does that fit
That's
in?
exactly where the skill level comes in. It's not supposed to be a comparison. If someone is comparing spending time with your brand to spending time with another brand, you didn't do it right. It's not supposed to be a comparison game. You are supposed to be the only. You are the space where they get. So when I'm reading, there's a million newsletters on a million topics out there. But when I get Matt Lerner's system email, I read Matt Lerner's system email from top to bottom. I take my time before I shuffle it away, call it done. I've read it. I've probably read it a couple times. That's the job. That's the liberating job. Let everybody else create slop. Fucking great. Go create all the junk you want to create all day, because then my stuff will stand out. That's where you keep your job. That's what the business hired you in the first place for that. And I think a lot of people lose sight of, like, once you've been an employer and you've seen employees not get that they were hired to provide value, and you're like, employees don't know they're supposed to provide value. Okay, so I just have to teach them that their job is to provide value for the business. And that's where you can say, y'all, hey, copywriter, your job is to make it so that people would rather be late for a meeting than risk closing this email before they're done opening it. This is what is it called? The driveway moment. What's it called for NPR? They invented the driveway moment. It's a better term than that, but it's something like that, which is I'm going to sit in my car in my driveway and finish listening to this episode of Planet Money before I go into the house. That's what content has always been about. We're just not doing it right. We've been creating crap a long, long time. And this is like, okay, if you can get agentic AI and regular AI like LLMs to get together and do a lot of the busy work that sucked anyway, and you can focus your team. Let's say you are making money and you do have these resources and you don't have to cut heads just for the sake of it because you're losing money, but you're making money. Now you can hire people who will make you do that kind of NPR quality. Don't worry about topics if people don't like NPR. Also, you should like NPR. But it's that quality of content that's so fucking good. That's the level every business owner has always wanted. They've always wanted their content creators to make content that's that good. That's our job. Now we get to do it. So there that's the whole opportunity. It's not even an edge case. It's not what if. That's it. We get to do that now, y'all. Like, let's all celebrate. We get to make the best stuff possible now. So I don't think there is a case to be made. It's like, what kind of content do you want? A bunch of slop? We used to have to worry so much about getting ranked on the top of the search engines by doing these bullshit things. You have to write a skyscraper post, which is really just you taking a week to go out and research everybody else's stuff on the topic, put it all into one new giant post. This would take an eternity. You didn't end up saying anything different. Nobody really bought into your brand afterward. You just had the new definitive guide too that was at the top of the search engine results page. You don't have to do that now. Now you can put together a kick-ass podcast that rocks on YouTube, and that can be your way into the customer's mind. Doesn't that?
No, definitely. I
Yeah.
feel like I think what you're trying to allude to is if you've built such a solid differentiation into the way you talk and into the way you're perceived and into the quality of your content, that no matter what AI does, you are going to stand out. Your content's going to stand out, and that's where the differentiation will play out. Which I feel like that is definitely something that's playing out. What I'm more concerned about is what about the people that don't know? What about the people that don't know who Joanna is or who Matt Lerner is, and they just have a problem. They just have a pain point, and then they're going on Google or ChatGPT and looking for a solution, and they get a solution, and then you're quoted for that solution, and maybe they want to dive deeper, but they don't end up clicking on the content that you produced and then build that relationship with you. But I want to go further into something that is also quite pressing, is idea of A/B testing. So right now, a lot of platforms are and a lot of marketers are thinking about A/B testing. Especially with the more content somebody produces, the more they want to test it.
Mhm.
One of the guests that I had on the podcast told me that, about 88% of websites don't have enough traffic to do a reliable A/B test.
Of
That's a
course.
test that's a statistic that she follows. Now, to my mind, if that is true, and if there's a certain threshold that you really need for you to figure out you're running a solid A/B test or something that's going to lead to a tangible outcome that drives your direction forward. If somebody doesn't have that volume or is struggling to get that and has this operational gap, how do they validate their messaging without sort of guesstimating?
Instagram. You
Interesting.
validate in social spaces. Yeah. That's a reason to have Instagram or TikTok. Put a message out there, see if people respond to it. If they do, scale it.
So you're saying use one platform as a base for you to understand if a messaging is going to hit or not. But what if the audience is different on different platforms? Like it might
Use
be different on
Instagram.
LinkedIn. And what about a person who doesn't have the kind of audience they have on LinkedIn is not the same as what they have on Instagram, is not the same that might end up on their website. So
So if you're
what should
saying
somebody do?
B2B are you
Yeah,
talking
beta.
B2B to versus B2C? So B2B isn't necessarily more on LinkedIn than the sales teams are on LinkedIn. Like people who are performing well on LinkedIn are in the sales ecosystem because LinkedIn has Sales Navigator. So if you're like trying to sell, there's lots of people who are just pumping crap out on LinkedIn because they understand that's where businesses go. Businesses are run by people. This is again a thing that has not changed. I have the director of copy for Walmart DMing me on Instagram. And she found me on Instagram. This is because people are on Instagram and they happen to have jobs as well. That is where I mean, LinkedIn, we could talk for days, but we would all come back to the same thing, which is LinkedIn is garbage. It's hot garbage. You're going to waste a lot of time on there. There will be somebody who will absolutely say, I got a really great client from LinkedIn. Cool. Cool. You're the one. Awesome. That's great. The rest of the world is out there pushing on LinkedIn going, nothing works. And LinkedIn loves changing its crappy little algorithm in the first place. So now you're not allowed to put a link anywhere, or now you are, or now it's video, but you do video and it still doesn't work. So you have to do LinkedIn ads to boost something, or and you can't even boost anything, and on and on and on. On. And I'm like, why are we fiddling around with this social platform for business when all of the people you know are on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or all of the above? So go over there and put your message in front of them there where there's a lot of traffic and it's optimized to push high performing messages get pushed further. Low performing messages do not. We already know that's the case for Instagram. So just use it to test your messages.
But let's say for most founders, when they hire a copywriter or a ghostwriter for their socials or just managing their communications, most of the time it is solving for commodity of time, which is I
Yeah.
do not care about what you do, like what my social media is, or how I'm perceived or what I'm talking about. Go figure it out and just do your job, right? 9 times out of 10, most copywriters who are ghostwriters for founders don't even get the time to talk to the founder and get to know them and understand them and then write copy around building their personal brand and story. Even though everybody's talking about founder funnel, founder led sales and founder led this, founder led that. Everybody's understood it, but very few people want to deploy it. And most importantly, copywriters are struggling to forget copywriters, marketers are struggling to make the case to founders like, hey, your personal brand matters. What do you talk about on social media matters, and you need to be more out there. So how does somebody still make the case to a very busy founder who just doesn't want to care about it? Maybe they don't even care if they just outsource it to Claude Code. Like, go ahead, do 10 posts for me. I don't care what it is.
So this is my challenge. I guess I haven't worked for a bad employer in a long time. If someone's going to hire
Wolf.
you for a job, if someone's going to hire you for a job and then not help you do that job, they shouldn't have hired you for that job. That's just mean, right? Like that's actually pretty cruel because that person could have that job somewhere else with a founder who would actually be doing the work required. So they're going to burn out. They're going to feel like this isn't my life. There's too many bad things going on here. But maybe it's not that. Maybe it's because the person who got hired is a little passive, a little scared in their job. That's okay. That's pretty normal. So stop. You got hired for a reason. You got hired to provide value for the business. Okay. The value is specific to the role that you're in. Okay. What is that role supposed to do? Get that founder found on social media. Okay. How do you do that? I need to talk to the founder. What would get in the way, inversion thinking? What would get in the way of making that happen? Well, if I couldn't talk to the founder, it'd be really hard to put the founder out there. Cool. So the one thing that's getting in the way is that you don't have time with the founder. Well, the founder's really busy. So busy that they can't find time for this. No. And if the answer is yes, then the job doesn't exist and you have to get out of there. If the answer is no, they can make time for it, then go get on their calendar. And I don't mean in a timid way. I mean, you are at their right hand. Once a week, you are in their office for 2 hours. You have your camera going, you've got them mic'd up, you are asking them questions, and you are finding hooks in what they say, and you're writing those hooks down and saying, now say it this way. That is how content gets made for founders. That is the 1-minute crash course in how to do it. Person with a camera at your desk, mic, ask questions, just keep going, talk, listen for the hook, tell the founder, say this hook back, say it again, cool, we've got this. Now you go and you batch produce that stuff and you repeat next week. Maybe they get every 6th week off. If they've been a good little CEO, then they're allowed to get that 6th week off or go on vacation at some point. But if it's that important,
You're almost bullying the founder.
hey, the founder is the one who asked for it. The founder forgot that was important to them. It is important and it's your job. No one said you have to be best friends with everybody you work with. Sometimes you're going to make people do things they don't really want to do for the good of the business. And when it comes to the founder, if anybody should be doing things that make them uncomfortable, it's the founder.
Yeah, makes so much sense. Okay. Final question for you, Joanna. What is in this whole mess of AI, and I like to call it mess because nobody really knows what it's doing. Like, it's a black box. If you really want to understand what's happening behind the scenes of an LLM and how it's generating content that sounds like you, because that's all the rage right now, Nobody knows. So, what is an underrated piece of copywriting, branding advice that you would like to give marketers that are flabbergasted with all of the AI noise around them? How do they take what's the signal and take that forward?
Think so for me, it's like allowing yourself to fall behind sometimes and catch up other times and choosing the tools that you really like. Like, which are the ones that are actually going to make your job better? There are different use cases, but if you're like, I don't know what to use, okay, start with Claude. Claude's the best, in my opinion. Claude is only getting better every second of every day. You don't know what it's doing behind the scenes. It stole a bunch of stuff from people, had to pay a bunch of those people money in a big class action, and now we're moving on with our lives. So go use Claude for chat, for co-work, for Claude Code. You'll have to learn how to install a terminal on your desktop. It will turn you into a bit of a developer thinking type person. And that's kind of interesting. Or don't install Claude Code because it doesn't matter to you. So then don't use it, and that's perfectly fine too. Just play around. You're not going to break anything. As long as you don't put your like banking information into a free tool, you're probably okay. So just like, yeah, just play around. And then once you find one, you're allowed to just stick with it. You're allowed to just be a Claude person, or I just use Lovable because the only thing I do in my job is build apps and stuff like that. Okay, cool. That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do more than that. Someone else will, and you might feel behind. Give yourself some grace. There's a lot happening. Just choose one.
That advice. Just try to narrow down, focus on one thing. And true. Joanna, this was interesting. I think we got a lot of
I don't think you agreed with me on a bunch of it, but I think I won you over with a couple. So there we go.
no, I think, it's fascinating to talk to people like you who've seen it over not years, decades, right? And get that perspective that sometimes there's a lot of hype, there is a lot of noise, and you're really not getting to the signal. When somebody like you comes out and says, "Hey, it's not really changing. You shouldn't be, going banana over every new AI update that says it's going to take over your job." Yeah. This was amazing. Thanks for doing
All
this,
right.
Joanna.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for everyone who tuned in. GM and bye-bye.